Buongiorno a tutti, spero mi sentiate bene. Sono Cristian Avanzi della Camera di Commercio di Torino e iniziamo questo primo appuntamento di questo modulo di approfondimento del tema della certificazione Halal. Oggi con noi ci sarà Tomas Guerrero Blanco, che è il direttore della società Halal Trade and Marketing Center, il nostro partner negli Emirati per tutto ciò che riguarda il tema della certificazione. Abbiamo avuto la scorsa settimana, grazie a Tomas e a un gruppo di speaker coinvolti da lui, una panoramica del tema della certificazione LAL in materia commerciale, quindi quali sono i mercati su cui si può lavorare con una certificazione LAL e quali sono le opportunità commerciali per le aziende che decidono di affacciarsi a questi mercati. Da oggi per le prossime 2 settimane, invece in 3 appuntamenti affronteremo il tema della certificazione in sé per sé. E come vedrete appunto la certificazione Halal non è una certificazione semplice da conseguire, però grazie al supporto di professionisti come Tomas e grazie al supporto che potrete avere da parte del nostro laboratorio chimico, che peraltro è il soggetto organizzatore di questo ciclo di webinar, potremo vedere come noi, diciamo, struttura camerale, possiamo fornirvi strumenti utili a capire sempre meglio quali sono le dinamiche legate alla certificazione, come poterla ottenere e quindi anche come poter arrivare sui mercati halal che siano all'estero ma anche in Italia. La scorsa settimana abbiamo avuto anche, grazie al professor Biancone dell'Università degli Studi di Torino, uno spaccato della realtà italiana e delle opportunità che le aziende possono cogliere se vogliono rivolgersi alle comunità musulmane o ai consumatori di prodotti halal anche a livello domestico. Ecco, potrete vedere come in realtà, se opportunamente accompagnati e guidati in questo percorso, tutto può essere più semplice e più facilmente realizzabile. Vi illustro solo brevemente quali saranno gli step di questo percorso di approfondimento. Quindi oggi si terrà il primo modulo, mercoledì prossimo il secondo e mercoledì 21 il terzo e ultimo modulo. La lingua di lavoro sarà l'inglese. Oggi affronteremo alcuni aspetti della certificazione Halal. Qui vedete il programma dei lavori, quali saranno gli argomenti trattati da Tomas, e seguiranno poi chiaramente gli altri 2 moduli con anche qui i temi che verranno toccati, fino ad arrivare alla conclusione del percorso. Ci tengo da subito a sottolineare che la presentazione che farà Tomas sarà una presentazione che appunto coprirà le prossime 2 ore e mezza, 3, però vogliamo renderla da subito interattiva. Quindi qualora ci siano delle domande, non esitate a porle durante lo svolgimento del webinar. Potrete farlo scrivendo le domande nella chat e io insomma, controllerò la chat e girerò a Tomas le domande man mano che arrivano, per cui non aspettate la conclusione del webinar nel caso in cui ci siano dei dubbi o delle curiosità che vi sovvengono nel corso della mattinata, e proporrei anche da subito una breve pausa intorno alle 11, in maniera tale da lasciare il tempo a tutti i partecipanti di insomma 5-10 minuti di pausa per potersi riprendere dai contenuti che vengono veicolati nel corso della mattinata, e eventualmente anche per raccogliere qualche pensiero e qualche domanda poi da porre al nostro relatore già subito dopo la ripresa del webinar. Non vorrei rubare altro tempo a Tomas, quindi lascio subito a lui la parola e interrompo la condivisione e passo appunto la parola a Tomas Guerrero Blanco, che vi illustrerà la prima parte dei lavori. Tomas, you
Thank
can
you,
start.
Cristian. Buongiorno. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tomas Guerrero. I'm the director of the Halal Trade and Marketing Center. First of all, I would like to start expressing again my deep gratitude to the Torino Chamber for giving me this opportunity to be here today with all of you for delivering this halal regulation training program. Well, as Cristian said, we will be having 3 modules, 3 sessions. First of all, and before starting with the module 1, I would like to highlight something. Please feel free to come with questions. If you have any doubt, any question, you can use the chat. We can stop the presentation and go through the question, because we have 3 hours. It's too much time. So I would like to also give you the opportunity. Obviously, at the end of the presentation, we will have time, a Q&A session, but if something comes up, you have, a doubt or question, no need to wait till the end. You can, use the chat and put your question or comment or doubt, and I will be more than happy to stop and go through. Having said that, let's start with the module 1. Today, I don't know if you saw the program. Cristian was going through the same, but today we will be talking basically about 2 topics. We will be talking about the halal concept and its economic and religious implications, and then we will be also talking or going through the halal regulation. We will go through the halal legal framework. We will try to understand not only the meaning of halal and its implications from the religious and economic point of view. We will also try to understand the regulation behind this market. So I will be sharing now my presentation for today with all of you. So, as I said, today we have the module 1 of this halal regulation course. Maybe, I don't know, but maybe someone is not still not familiar with the halal concept. So let's start, as usual, defining the meaning of halal, or giving a definition for the halal concept. As you can see here, halal basically is an Arabic term meaning lawful as per the Islamic law. Okay, so the halal economy, at the end of the day, is that composed of sectors structurally affected by the Islamic law. So the halal economy is composed of halal related sectors. So those are, you can see here, affected by the Islamic law, such as food, that must be halal, finance, that must be Sharia compliance, or fashion, that must be modest. So this is, let's say, a clear definition for the halal concept. It's important to understand this. Halal means lawful as per the Islamic law. So when we talk about the halal economy or halal F&B products or halal related sector, we are talking about those sectors where the products and services are affected by the Islamic law. I gave you some cases, but as we will be seeing in this course, halal is not only about food, okay? So there are more halal related sectors. For that, we have also business opportunities in other, let's say, business niche. But this course, of course, will be about F&B, the halal F&B regulation. So this is a basic definition for the halal concept. Well, once we have, let's say, a clear idea about the halal meaning, now I would like to share with you this slide in order to go through another concept. Here you can see halal versus haram. So I already said that halal basically includes everything that is allowed for the Muslim consumers or for the Muslim population. So halal means allowed, healthy, ethical, not abusive. Okay, those are the let's say the meanings for halal. But we have, let's say, another concept in the Islamic law, basically saying the opposite. Okay, this concept is haram, and as you can see here, haram refers to everything that is banned or prohibited for the Muslim population. Okay, so according to the Islamic law, you can see or find some, let's say, products or services that are haram. Okay, but it's important to say or to highlight that the majority of the things are halal. Okay, so let's say there is a short list for haram items or for haram goods or services. The majority of the goods and services are halal by default. So for that reason, Muslims are allowed to consume them. So it's better to go through the haram short list rather than trying to see all the halal, let's say, things or items, because as I said, almost everything is halal. So they are, let's say, allowed for the Muslim consumers or the Muslim population. So going now to see the haram short list. Obviously, if we check the Islamic law, we will be finding some, as I said, specific, let's say, products or raw materials as well as services that are haram. So among them, as you can see here, we have some cases or examples from the F&B point of view. We have, for example, the meat coming from the animals found dead, the blood coming from the animals, the alcohol, the pork, meat. So let's say we have raw materials, so food products that are not allowed because they are haram. So basically, the Muslim consumers, the Muslim population is not allowed to buy or consume these haram products. Also, it's important to say that we can find some haram, let's say, practices or services, such as the bets in the game or the abusive speculation in the finance space. But as I said, today we will be going through the F&B space. So I think it's important to have a clear idea about what halal means, as well as about what haram means, because these two concepts are the ones behind this huge market called halal market. Okay, these two concepts, halal and haram, they are the ones basically saying to the Muslim consumers or population what they can buy or what they can consume. So imagine we have 1.8 billion Muslim people, the 26% of the total population. So these religious concepts, they are the ones, let's say, guiding the preference of the Muslim consumers. They are the ones guiding the Muslims' lives. So they are the ones saying, okay, you can or not buy or consume this. So these two concepts are important. They are relevant, and for that reason we are taking time in order to explain them and have a clear idea about the meaning. So, well, here and before moving on, we have, let's say, the definitions for halal and haram. So now we have, let's say, good overview about the meaning for these two concepts. But as you probably know, the Islam is not monolithic. Inside Islam, we have different, let's say, religious groups. Okay, so we have Shias, we have Sunnis. Okay, we have different interpretations of the Islamic laws. Okay, different ways of being Muslim. Obviously, those different ways of being Muslim affect what we are watching now. And let me give you one example. We don't have many, let's say, cases, but there are some where basically something is halal for Sunnis and not halal for Shias, for example. So let me give you one case in order to explain to you this point. For example, the Holy Quran says that all the food coming from the sea is halal, okay? So for Sunnis are the 70% more or less of the total Muslim population. For Sunnis, they are taking that to say, okay, the food coming from the sea is halal, so we can eat fish, seafood, no problem. Everything is halal, okay? But for example, Shias, the remaining, more or less the remaining 30% of the total global Muslim population, they are saying, okay, the Holy Quran is saying that it's true, but the Holy Quran or the Islamic law is also saying that the fish and the seafood living under the sand, they are haram. So for Shias, the food coming from the sea is not halal by default. You have different categories. And basically for Shias, seafood is not allowed. Why? Because they are also taking this another idea about the animals, of the food coming from the animals living under the sand, okay, inside the sea or within the sea. So obviously we have, as I said, some cases where these, let's say, definitions for halal and haram, they are not, let's say, matching. Why? Because, as I said, we have different groups or different, let's say, interpretations for Islam. So because of that, sometimes I gave you a easy case of one to give you a basic idea about this, but because of that, as I said, sometimes these definitions are not, let's say, valid for everyone, for all the Muslims, okay? And in addition, we also have sometimes, and we also have some, let's say, specific cases, and I will give you one or two for explaining this, let's say, another approach for, let's say, justifying why sometimes these definitions are not valid for everyone. Sometimes, and out of the, let's say, religious interpretation for Islam, we also have cultural approaches. So let me give you some cases. We have, as I said, 1.8 billion Muslim people. We have 57 Muslim majority countries across the world. So we have Muslim people living in North African countries, here in the Middle East, in Southeast Asia, in Central Asia, in different regions of the world. So obviously they have something in common. All of them, they are Muslims. And in principle, all of them, they are following, or they are under the Sharia, the Islamic law rules. But as I said, sometimes we have different interpretation, but we also have sometimes different cultural approaches. So again, in the F&B space, because I gave you the case of the food coming from the sea, now, for example, what happened? Holy Quran or the Islamic law also saying, okay, the horse, okay, horse is haram. So the horse meat is not allowed, okay? Horse, according to the Islamic law, is not halal, is haram. But if you travel, for example, to Kazakhstan or Uzbekistan, to Central Asian countries where the majority of the population is Muslim, they are Muslim majority countries, okay? You will see, or you will find meat horse everywhere. And basically the meat horse is the most famous dish in Uzbekistan or Kazakhstan, for example. So here we have another, let's say, contradiction. Why? Because we have Muslim people consuming, eating, in this case, something that is, let's say, under the haram umbrella. In this case, we are talking about horse meat. So, okay, they are Muslims, but because they are living in Central Asia and they have, let's say, a different cultural way of living, they are eating horse where horse meat is not allowed. We have another case, for example, in Morocco. In North African countries, sometimes it's also easy to find places or restaurants where Muslims are eating snails, okay? Again, all the bags are not allowed. Bags are haram. But if you go, for example, to Morocco, as I said, it's very easy to see or find Muslim consumers there, Muslim people, Moroccans, eating snails. Why? Same cultural approach, okay? Because they are used to, because it was part of their diet since the many centuries ago, no? Since the beginning. So, okay, bugs, or in this case, snails, they are not allowed. They are haram, okay? But we can also see, for example, in Morocco, many Muslims eating them. So today we will be some concepts or religious terms. Obviously, this is valid for almost everyone, but we have to take the interpretations as well as the cultural approaches into account sometimes for some specific products, for some specific countries, okay? Because, as you saw, we have some cases where these definitions for halal and haram, they are not, let's say, correct, but they are not valid for everyone, okay? For example, now I was thinking about bags. Why? Because in Europe or in many other countries or places, regions across the world, bags are coming, let's say, or are becoming popular, basically because we don't have enough animal protein, and we are finding different ways for feeding the people today as well as in the future. So bags are, let's say, becoming famous or popular as an alternative way of having proteins, no? So here in the UAE, for example, a few weeks ago, because in some social media channels, people starting to talk about this, our Ministry of Agriculture, as well as our municipalities here, they came with a short, let's say, communication to clarify this, saying, okay, we are aware that in Europe or in US or in Canada, Australia, Japan, in China, there are some companies starting to use bags as a protein or as an ingredient for elaborating some food items. We are aware of that, but we are clear. Bags are not halal, so we will be not accepting any product coming from bag factories or companies, or any product using bags, let's say, bags as an ingredient, no? I'm thinking now, for example, I was thinking about the E120. We call this carmín cochinilla. So carmín cochinilla, as you probably know, is not everywhere, but the companies in the F&B industry, they are using this, let's say, ingredient for giving the pink color, for example, to the yogurt, no? It's there. So what happened with this, let's say, ingredient? Okay, the E120, as you probably know, is the blood coming from a bag. So let's say it's 2 times haram. Why? Because it's blood, and blood is haram. Okay, and this blood is coming from bags. So there is, we call cochinilla. I don't know in Italian the name for this specific bag, but as you probably know, many products have this ingredient. So now, for example, for those companies, if they want to be able to export, to produce and export the products to any Muslim majority countries, they have to remove that ingredient, no? They have to find an alternative ingredient to achieve the same, but this one is not allowed. So bags are not allowed, but as I said, if you go, for example, to Morocco, you will find people eating snail. And strange, yes, but the cultural thing or approach, the way of living is there, and it's normal. No one in Morocco considering snails, for example, haram. But according to the Islamic law, they are. And here, as I said, for example, a few weeks ago, sorry, we had that let's say discussion, because I remember it was about Mondelez and these cookies Oreo, because some newspapers or some bloggers or some Instagrammers, some people using the social media to say, okay, Mondelez, the company producing the Oreo cookies, they are analyzing the possibility of using some bags as an ingredient for this or that. So here, because it was, let's say, trending topic, our authorities, let's say, they jump on the topic and they came with a short communication to clarify everything, saying, okay, we are aware of this new trend, but bags are not halal, they are haram, so we will be not accepting that. But I gave you some cases where we can find, let's say, contradictions. So these definitions are valid for almost everyone, but we have to take, as I said, into consideration the religious interpretations inside the Islamic world, plus sometimes the cultural approaches. So, well, now let's see another relevant concept. We saw a clear definition about the meaning for halal and haram, okay? Now, that's clear, even when we know we have some particular cases where those definitions are not, let's say, matching, they are not the right ones, or we have some, let's say, contradictions, but we can use that approach for almost everything, everyone in the Muslim space. Okay, what happened? I don't know if someone among the participants read the Holy Quran, but when you read the Holy Quran or the Hadiths, so you go through the Islamic jurisprudence, you will find halal concept, the halal concepts, close to another one in many cases. So you will be reading halal tajib. So you will be having, in many cases, these two concepts or ideas together. Okay? Halal now, it's clear, but why they are saying halal tajib? So tajib is another concept, a religious one, of course, saying all the halal things are good for the human beings. They are healthy. They are good for our health. They are good for human beings. They are not saying for Muslims. They are saying for human beings. So meaning for everyone, Muslims and non-Muslims. So when you read the Islamic law, you find this concept, halal, close to, in many cases, to this other one, tajib. So halal tajib, meaning all the illicit things, all the things or the products or the services allowed, they are good. They are good for the human beings. So here you have a chart, an interesting one, where you can see the, let's say, spin-offs coming from the halal concept. Because what happened? Obviously, if the halal products, the halal services are good for everyone, means that halal could be also interesting for non-Muslim people. And we will see a dedicated slide about that, because it's true. Now we can find non-Muslim people in Europe as well as in many other continents or regions across the world demanding consuming halal products, even when they are not Muslim. Why? Because halal today, I'm talking about the existing approach, halal is not longer only a religious concept. Halal also means healthy, also means ethical, also means quality. So let's say halal is not only longer for Muslims, it's also good for non-Muslims. And for the non-Muslims, the idea of, okay, halal is something, for example, healthy, is attractive. And I'm not Muslim, so let's say the funny thing is that they are right. So we will see a slide also about this. Why I'm saying they are right, even when I'm not Muslim, because if we check with the, let's say, university specialist, professor, or with a doctor, okay, if the haram items are good or bad for our health, they will say they are not good. So alcoholic drinks, okay, you can drink, but they are not good. The pork meat is the worst among the different animal proteins. Obviously, the blood coming from the animals, they are not. This is not also good for our health. You know, sometimes we are using blood for elaborating or producing some meat products. The blood is there, so blood is not good. So basically, when we check that, we find that the haram products or the haram items, they are, let's say, non-healthy for humans. So halal today is matching with new trends. It's matching with organic, it's matching with bio, it's matching with keto, it's matching with all those trends where basically people is looking for, consumers across the world, they are looking for healthy products, healthy food, okay? So halal, as I said, is not longer a religious concept, and it's not longer only for Muslims. Why? Because the meaning of halal, we saw the traditional one, the religious one, but today, halal means also, as I said, healthy, ethical, quality. So for that reason, when you go through the Islamic laws, Islamic law or the Holy Quran, or, you know, you will find this concept, tajib, close to the halal one. So basically saying, in many cases, halal, okay, is illicit, it's allowed, it's correct, but it's not only that, it's because it's good for you. Okay, so because of that, today, the halal market is so big. Why? Because you have 1.8 billion Muslim people. For them, it's mandatory. They can have non-halal options. But what happened? Halal is becoming popular, attractive for some non-Muslim consumers. For example, in Europe, if you go through the halal shops or restaurants, or if you go to check who are the ones buying halal F&B products in the supermarkets where you can find halal, let's say, items, halal goods, you will find that maybe the 30% it's non-Muslim people. So when we check that, we find, for example, people coming from the bio or coming from the healthy segments. So they are looking for halal products. They are buying and consuming halal food products. Why? Because basically they don't want to eat products where you have ingredients or some raw materials that they consider that they are, let's say, not good for their health. So halal is giving them that, because if you find a product with the halal label, the halal stamp, okay, you have a certifier checking the ingredients during the production, so guaranteeing consumers that they don't have any haram raw material or ingredient inside. So for the Muslims, it's like, okay, I can't eat this, so I need to find the halal logo, the halal products, and then I'm safe. But for the non-Muslim consumers, the halal logo now is, okay, about quality, about avoiding eating ingredients or raw materials, products, where there are some, as I said, raw materials or ingredients that they are not good for their health. So this is a very interesting point, because when we look at the halal market, first idea coming to our mind, okay, the Muslim countries, the Muslim population. Of course, this is the key target. But today, we see non-Muslim consumers demanding, buying, consuming, eating halal products, halal food items. Why? Because of this idea. Because halal is also taijib. It's good for our health, for our body, for the human beings. Okay, so they have this approach, and imagine today where healthy food is everywhere, when we have plant-based meat, when we have organic, bio, vegan. So, you know, big trends. Many consumers across the world trying to be part of those trends, or trying to have and enjoy those products. And halal, it's there. So basically, halal is, as I said, matching in a perfect way, by the way, with vegan, with organic, natural, and so on. So in this course, we will be, in the next sessions, going through the, let's say, numbers, through the trends, the opportunities, benchmarks, success cases in the F&B space. And we will be talking mostly about the opportunities in the, let's say, Muslim space, or Muslim majority countries, of talking about Muslim people. But now, today, halal could also work as a tool for engaging with non-Muslim consumers, to connect with non-Muslim consumers. Well, we saw the taijib concept or approach, okay? Now, let's go deep into this idea about haram and non-healthy, okay? So, as I said, for the non-Muslim consumers, halal is becoming popular. Why? Because haram matching with non-healthy products. So here you have, let's say, the most famous haram, let's say, categories or items, no? We have alcoholic drinks, we have pork, meat, we have blood, we have the, let's say, the illicit animals, but not slaughtered according to the Islamic law. We have drugs. So, as I said, haram matching with non-healthy. Okay? For example, in the Muslim world, the COVID origin was a bit strange, but not because of this, let's say, legend or history about the lab in Wuhan. No. In principle, COVID came from animals, wild animals, pangolin, no? There are some, let's say, animals, no, under the radar because maybe they were the ones, let's say, passing the COVID to the humans, no? And in the Muslim world, as I said, in the Muslim majority countries, no one understood that how is possible, how people, for example, in China is eating pangolin or is eating this or that wild animal. Because according to the Islamic law, they are haram. So let's say there is a short list, also for licit animals, okay? And a very long list for, let's say, non-licit or illicit animals. So they were saying this happened because they are not having, let's say, our mindset or our approach or our beliefs, no? Because it's not possible to eat those animals here. So why? Because Islam or Holy Quran, Islamic law saying the meat coming or those animals, they are dangerous. They are not healthy. And again, they were right. So now, okay, we have to take care in some countries because the population, they are eating these wild animals, and we saw the consequences or the result, no? So, as I said, haram matching with, let's say, non-healthy, something, let's say, dangerous for our health. Okay, so halal today for Muslims, also now becoming, let's say, the same for non-Muslim, is a warranty, as you can see here, of quality, sustainability, and health. So halal means licit, but also healthy, something good for your body, for your health. So I already said something about this. Because of that idea, because of that matching, halal today is also attractive for non-Muslim people or consumers. And we can find many F&B products where you have the vegan or the, let's say, bio logo label and the halal one. So these trends, let's say, are coming together. And from our perspective, is this situation, this scenario is making the halal market even bigger, even more attractive for companies. Because, okay, we have now the Muslim population, huge one, enough one to make business, but also we have this growing, let's say, trend where non-Muslim consumers are also demanding, they are also buying halal F&B products. Well, what happened in the Muslim space? Now, let's talk about the Muslim majority countries, okay? We saw halal, haram, tajib, the interactions, how they are, coming with a even bigger market, because it's also attractive for non-Muslims. But if we talk about the Muslim consumers, the Muslim majority countries, we will be finding this concept or idea, Kulu Halal. So Kulu Halal means that in principle, everything is halal by default in the Muslim majority countries, okay? That was the idea. That was the idea. Decades ago, in the Muslim majority countries, everyone saying, Kulu Halal, no worries. Everything here in my country, because it's a Muslim majority one, is halal. But after some decades, they found that that was not the reality. That was not true. I don't know, but maybe some of you already know this. The Muslim majority countries, not all, but many of them, those in North Africa, Middle East, okay, those are net importers of F&B products. So basically, the countries, the Muslim majority ones in North Africa, as well as the Muslim majority countries here in the Middle East, they are importing almost everything when we talk about food, okay, food and beverage. For example, here in the GCC countries, we are importing around the 90% of the food that we are consuming. We have oil, we have gas, but we don't have here the possibility of producing F&B products. Same with other countries, for example, in North Africa. So we have to import the F&B products that we need. And those products, those F&B goods, they are coming from non-Muslim majority countries. So food coming from Europe, coming from South America, coming from Oceania, Australia, New Zealand, coming from basically non-Muslim majority countries. And as I said, we are importing almost everything. We have a huge dependence in the F&B space. So because of that, okay, as I said, some decades ago, we didn't have, let's say, the technology or the tools for checking, if everything reaching our countries or coming to our countries, if everything was halal or not. As you can imagine, the Muslim majority countries, they are emerging countries, okay, or developing countries. So they are growing, they are leading the economic growth now, but a few decades ago, they were non-developing countries, so they didn't have technology or tools to check this. But the idea of the people, Kulu Halal. Everything here is halal, no worries. You can eat, you can buy, you don't have to think, okay? So at that time, the halal certification was not needed. It was not a requirement for exporting products to some Muslim majority countries. The halal certification became, let's say, mandatory, compulsory 10, 15 years ago. But before, it was not there. It was not mandatory in many cases. Why? Because, okay, in principle, people thinking our authorities, they are in charge of checking and we are safe because they are not accepting those products with haram ingredients, no? Those that they are haram. But as I said, that was not true, okay? And I get this funny chart from a presentation, from a presentation of halal standardization body, okay? So basically, they were using this chart to say, hey, we have to be careful. We have to check deeply because see, only from the pork, they are using this, let's say they are using pork and the derivatives to produce many different types of goods, food and non-food items or products. As you can see here, we have cosmetics, medicines, we have many things. So, and it's true, by the way. And obviously, when we found the problem, because I remember some universities some decades ago, they were the ones starting to check the halal or non-halal, let's say, idea, no? They were checking if the product was or not halal. And they found many products with non-halal ingredients. So basically, they found many haram F&B products. So it was a big scandal problem. And since then, the authorities in the Muslim majority countries, they decide to change the approach. Before, okay, Kulu halal, everything is halal, but at the end of the day, no one was checking. So the borders, they were there, but the controls were not there. So, okay, you can export products to the Muslim countries. They need our products. They don't have in the F&B space. They don't have the possibility of producing food. So we can export to them, and no one will be checking if our product is halal or not. But as I said, some universities, some, let's say, research labs, they started not so far ago to check product by product if they were or not halal, and they found many haram products. And imagine the Muslim population, they were eating, they were buying, they were consuming those products without any problem because the Kulu halal idea was there. So when they found that, newspapers, it was a big let's say, problem. So the authorities decide to change the approach. They came with a regulation. They made the halal certification mandatory or compulsory. So because of that, the Kulu halal idea is not longer there. And we will see now the halal legal framework. We will see the structure for regulating and controlling this. Okay, so that will be the next, let's say, part of this module. And the reason is this Kulu Halal. So we are importing almost everything. Food is coming from non-Muslim majority countries, and we have to check if the food coming is halal or not. Before, no one checking, no one controlling, Kulu halal, everything was halal, but they found that that was not true, and now authorities in the Muslim majority countries taking measures, decisions to change this. And because of that, today, the halal regulation is, let's say, complex because there was a, let's say, overreaction. They came with many standards, requirements, ways of checking, controlling to be safe, to be able to say to the Muslim population in their home countries, no worries, you can go to the supermarket, you can go to the restaurant, you can eat, you can buy, everything is halal. No need to check, no need to be worried about this, because now we have a system in place to check this. We have a system in place to control, okay? So before starting with the second part of the presentation, we will talk about the halal legal framework. As I said, I would like to see if we have any question, if there is any doubt. I will check the chat. Christian, I don't know if you saw any doubt, question, or comment.
Yes, actually in the chat we don't have so far any questions. Let me check better. Nope. No, not so far.
Okay.
Maybe everything is clear,
okay,
and you are a good speaker.
No, thank you. It's not easy to explain this to the people, because as you saw, there are let's say many ways of understanding the same. And for example,
Right.
I remember companies saying, okay, I want to export to, I don't know where, and I find a different regulation, and then I went to another place and I found another one, or here they are Shia and they are not eating seafood, and here in the not so far in the closing country they are not Shia and they are eating seafood. So there are also,
Yes,
as I said, some cases or contradictions, and it's important before going deeply into the regulation, the standards, the requirements, the accreditation and certification, procedures, to have a clear idea about the meaning of halal, the meaning of haram, this new idea about tajib, the healthy product, why this is also good or relevant for non-Muslims, and making this opportunity even bigger. So that was my idea. But if you don't have any question, we can maybe stop here 5 minutes and continue with the second, in order to have one section and now another one, because now we will go through requirements, through standards, certifiers, standardization and accreditation bodies. So the topic will be, let's say, a bit different. But we have now the foundations, this idea about halal, haram, tajib, and so on.
In the meanwhile, I received a question from a participant.
Good.
Concerning, okay, we are talking about the end products.
Yes.
There is a question concerning the research and development. If the halal certification on the halal, let me say, framework applies also to the scientific research in the development, for instance, for development of pharmaceutical products. You know that the development takes a long time in different phase, and concerning the pharmaceuticals, I mean, to be more specific, if there is any kind of framework, halal framework, also over the development process. And in that case, who is in charge of making all the checks and doing, you know, all what is needed to step by step certify that that product could be halal as soon as it comes to the end?
Okay, thank you so much for sharing the question. First of all, it's a very good one because, yeah, we are talking about F&B products, but for pharma, we also have rules. We also have standards. So there are some, let's say, regulations for halal pharma products. What happened? Same, by the way, with cosmetics. The standards are there, the rules are there, but many Muslim majority countries, they are not making the halal certification compulsory for pharma products or cosmetic products. Maybe in the future, because the rules are there, they will change and they will make also the certification mandatory for pharma and cosmetics. But today, I'm going to your point, only Malaysia and Indonesia in the Southeast Asia, only those countries, only these two countries, Muslim majority ones in Southeast Asia, have, let's say, in place a compliance system for pharma. So for pharma and cosmetics, not only for food, also for pharma and cosmetics, Malaysia and Indonesia have in place, as I said, a regulation where the halal certification works, meaning it's mandatory, it's compulsory. So if you want to develop a pharma product, once you finalize, let's say, the product, you need to get the halal certification if you want to export to the Southeast Asia, basically to Malaysia and Indonesia. But today, if you want to do the same, for example, to the UAE or Saudi Arabia or to Egypt or Morocco, you don't need. Okay, for pharma. The rules are also there. We have here, for example, in UAE, also rules, standards for regulating from the halal perspective, the pharma or cosmetics products. But the authorities, they are not forcing the companies to get the certification in advance to, you know, be safe and say, okay, also the pharma products reaching our country, they are, let's say, halal. Why? Because they are coming from a company certified, and that certification is coming from a certifier recognized by our authorities, you know. But today, only for Southeast Asia. So, for example, here we have Abbott, the US pharma company, not so far. They got the halal certification. They got the halal certification because they want to avoid any misunderstanding. We have also to think about that, using the halal certification as a marketing tool. When it's not mandatory or compulsory, okay, I can export my pharma or cosmetic product to the UAE or to Saudi Arabia or to, no, good, you know, I don't have to go through the compliance process. I don't have to pass the audit, pay them for the certification. So you are saving money, time, but maybe the perception here for a product coming from Italy, and Italy, my home country, also Spain, famous because of wine and pork. So a product coming from the wine and pork country, maybe from the consumer perspective, is not safe if the certification is not there. So I met many companies in the cosmetics and pharma space saying, okay, we have the certification not because it's mandatory, because we want to highlight that in our packaging to make, you know, the consumers think in a right way. Okay, it's a product coming from US or from Europe or from, but it's halal. Even when the to buy customs, for example, here, you know, the customs or the officials at the border, they are not, you're not checking if you are trying to introduce your products with or without the certification. It's not mandatory, it's not compulsory. Everyone can export cosmetics and pharma to the Middle East, to North African countries without the certification. But Southeast Asia, and by the way, we will see now, they were the pioneers. They were the ones starting with the Halal certification, coming with a legal framework, rules, requirements, and so on. A few years ago, the Indonesia law is from 2019. The original one, 2014, but then they postponed because of the pressure. Many countries saying you can't do this in 2 days. We need time to adapt our production to make also pharma and cosmetics halal. So they were postponing, but became into force in 2019. So not so far. And since then, halal is also mandatory for pharma and cosmetics. For consumer goods, they are coming with this category, consumer goods. So inside you have food, pharma, and cosmetics. So Malaysia and Indonesia, they have, let's say, the same approach, the same regulation. So if you want to export to these countries, you need. But if not, you don't have to get the certification. But it's good. But maybe in the future we will be also following the same steps, you know.
Yeah, and even in those cases, the Halal certification applies to the end products, or there is a scheme for the development of the products. For pharma, it will take a few years to come to the end product. So probably the question is related to the fact that you have to know a little bit in advance if you are going the right way to get the certification at the end of the development process.
Good point. Yeah, it's about the final product, but same. We saw, or we were talking about something similar before. Okay, the ingredients, no, and here you have the formula. You have, different, let's say, additives or different, ingredients using the same word. So if you want to have a final halal final product, you have to be you have to check the ingredients. You have to be safe. You can't produce something and then it's not matching with the halal requirement. Maybe because the problem is this is not food. In food sometimes, for example, for sweets, you can change the fat. Okay, pork fat is not allowed. I will get the fat from the cow or from the, and the result is almost the same or the same. But in pharma, it's a complex thing. If you change something, maybe you don't have the let's say the same ingredient to reproduce the same effect or to come with the same result. So changing something is critical, because maybe the final product will be different, or the effects, they were not the same, or the power, or this or that. So you have to check the ingredients, the formula, and see if you are using or not halal ingredient. But again, you only have 2 countries in the world where they will be saying, okay, we will be not accepting your product if it's not coming under the halal certification umbrella, because now it's the law. But because, it's not mandatory, my point, based on my track record experience, also based on my conversation with the people in the pharma and cosmetic, because, if you change in a perfume or in a pill, medicine pill, something, the result will be totally different, maybe.
Yeah.
So they are not, they are aware of this. So the authorities, they are saying, okay, I prefer to recover if I'm sick rather than to have halal product, but not, coming with the benefits, making me feel better.
Basically, your suggestion is to decide in advance if you want to target those countries, and then to check the ingredients step by step, because there is
Yes.
not a scheme to certify the process. So you can just certify the end product.
The end product based on the ingredients.
Okay, so if it's not the case, you can go ahead with your research. Otherwise, if you want to put, you know, Indonesia and Malaysia as target countries, you have to move in advance and decide which kind of ingredients you will need to use to get to the end products, and you can get the certification of the end products.
Yes, and if you have haram ingredients, if you can replace those ingredients using halal ones and, let's say, getting the same result, the same final product.
Yeah. Okay,
yeah, but that's
yeah. Okay,
approach.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we can go ahead with your presentation.
Yes, let's continue.
That was the question.
Just a second. I will come back. So we were finalizing the first part of the module. You remember talking about Kulu Halal, why now the Muslim majority countries came with, let's say, complex regulation for these markets. Before, they were thinking that everything was halal by default, this Kulu Halal idea. Then they found that that was not true. And because of the reaction of the people, the media, and so on, they saw the problem and they decide to change, let's say, the approach and came with the legal framework to make the halal certification mandatory or compulsory. So, okay, today we have in place, as I said, a complex halal legal framework. This is a huge market. We already said we're talking about 1.8 billion Muslim consumers, 57 Muslim majority countries, many of them emerging markets. If we talk about food, halal food, we are talking about $1.2 trillion market. So it's a huge and fast-growing market. That's clear. But let's say we have a small issue. Why? Because basically, for regulating this massive business niche, we don't have a global halal standard, okay? We have different rules for regulating the same market. So there is a fragmentation from the regulation point of view. Why? Because of the Kulu Halal issue. Because they came in order to control the situation and change the consumers' mindset, they came with many, let's say, standards, requirements, and they didn't think in a harmonized way. They were not saying at that time, okay, let's go through the OIC. OIC is a, let's say, multilateral organization representing the 57 Muslim majority countries. Is the organization for the Islamic cooperation. Okay, let's go through the OIC and find a solution, a global one, the same one for the 57 Muslim majority countries. At that time, they were not doing that. So they came with different standards. And those standards, because basically the people behind those standards, they had different interpretations or approaches. Those standards or the existing standards, in some cases, they are not saying the same. They are coming with different approaches or requirements. So creating, let's say, confusion as well as some problems for the companies trying to get the halal certification to be able to produce and export the products according to the existing halal standards. It's a huge market. It's a very good business opportunity, especially for the F&B companies. But we will see now is that the legal framework is not easy to understand, and it's becoming a bit complex because the lack of the harmonization. We have different rules, different organizations, and sometimes they are also, let's say, competing, trying to say, no, my halal rule or my halal approach or way of thinking is the right one, and your halal is not pure or is not, let's say, the correct one. So because of that overreaction, when they found the Kulu halal problem, and at that time they were not thinking as a, let's say, a set of countries. They were thinking from the national perspectives, and they were trying to find solutions to avoid Muslim people consuming non-halal product. That was something horrible at that time, and as I said, media saying very bad things about this and the consequences and blah blah blah. So okay, the result they came with many rules, but not saying the same. So you will see, we will go through now not easy framework, okay? But before going through that, I would like to start this part of the module talking about the organizations, okay? Before going through the rules, through the standards, through the requirements, I would like to talk about the organizations in charge of regulating this market in the Muslim space, in the Muslim majority countries, in the 57 OIC markets or countries. So, well, in the Muslim majority countries, first of all, we have standardization bodies, okay? Halal standardization bodies. They are the ones in charge of regulating this market in their home countries. They are the ones basically coming with the rules, with the requirements, okay? They are the ones elaborating the standards. And as I said, we have different standards, basically because we have different halal standardization bodies, okay? So later on we will see 3 levels: global, regional, and national. But now I only want to, let's say, describe or define the 3 types of organizations regulating the halal market. So first of all, in the Muslim majority countries, halal standardization bodies. So basically entities, as I said, elaborating the standards, the halal ones, for regulating this market in their home countries, okay, in their home markets. Then also in the Muslim majority countries, we have the halal accreditation bodies, okay? We have the entities coming with the rules, and then we have the accreditation bodies, so the entities, the organizations, basically checking, controlling if the certifiers, the halal certification bodies, inside their countries or abroad, they have, if they have or not, the technical and religious capabilities to certify, to audit and certify companies according to the existing halal standards in their home countries. I know, sounds a bit strange, longer, strange, but I will try to repeat in order to make you understand the role of the halal accreditation bodies in the Muslim majority countries. Because the standardization bodies, it's clear. They are only elaborating standards. They are the ones coming with the rules, okay, with the requirements. But then we have the accreditation bodies. So, as I said, they are the ones auditing, controlling the certifiers, okay, in their home countries as well as abroad, to check, to see if those certifiers are ready or not, if they have the technical and religious capabilities for auditing and certifying companies, producers, according to the Halal rules in the Halal accreditation bodies' home countries. Okay, so that's the role of the Halal accreditation bodies in the Muslim majority countries. And then we have the certifiers. Okay. By the way, the Halal standardization bodies and the Halal accreditation bodies, both organizations, they are public organizations. They are not private companies, okay? And they are in the Muslim majority countries. So basically, the standardization and accreditation bodies from the Halal perspective, they belong to the religious affairs ministry or to the agriculture ministry. So they are, let's say, departments, public departments or public organizations, okay, with those functions that we saw, but they are not private companies, okay? They are official, let's say, entities, organizations. But, as I said, now we have a third type of organization, the certifiers. Here, we're talking about private companies, okay? So, the certifiers, they are across the world. You have certifiers in the Muslim and non-Muslim space. So, you have Halal certification bodies, they are private companies, and they are the ones auditing and certifying the producers. They are the ones checking if the companies are able or not to produce goods or provide services according to the Halal standards in the Muslim majority countries. Okay? So, as I said, we have three types of organizations. In the Muslim majority countries, we have the standardization and accreditation bodies. They are public organizations, and they are the ones in charge of, as I said, producing or elaborating the standards and also controlling the certifiers, the case of the accreditation body. And inside, but also outside or out of the Muslim majority countries, we have the certifiers, private companies auditing and certifying the producers, okay? They are the ones coming with the inspection, checking if the companies are ready or not, they are able or not to produce, elaborate goods or provide services according to the existing Halal standards in the Muslim majority countries, according to the rules or the requirements set by the Halal standardization bodies in the Muslim majority country. Okay, so we have three types of organizations: standardization bodies, accreditation bodies, and certification bodies. Okay. Okay, now what happened? I already said, we don't have a global Halal standard. Okay, we don't have an ISO. We don't have a rule for regulating this huge market in all the Muslim majority countries. Because of the Kullu Halal overreaction, we have different standards. And when we compare the standards, we find a small, let's say, differences. They are not saying the same in some cases. Okay? For example, in order to make this easy to understand, when we talk about halal meat and we go through the slaughterhouses, here, the GCC countries, okay? Our standards for regulating the meat and poultry products, the 993 standards, they are not accepting stunning, okay? For example, for birds, okay, for poultry. They are not accepting any type of stunning for producing halal poultry meat, okay? 993 standards in the GCC. Now in December, by the way, UAE will be changing or updating the 993, the national one, and UAE will be also accepting stunning before the halal slaughtering for birds, okay? But here today, no way. You can't use stunning before the halal slaughtering for producing halal poultry meat, okay? White meat or white animal protein. But if you go to the Southeast Asia, Malaysia and Indonesia, if you go through their standards for regulating meat for slaughterhouses and cutting plants, they are accepting stunning also for poultry, for birds, okay? But under certain parameters, okay? So this is, for example, one case. Another case, vinegar. But you probably know, vinegar has alcohol, a small percentage, but the percentage allowed is not the same if you go through the halal standards. In some countries is 0.001 or 0.005 or 0.5, depends. And that's also a problem because we don't have, let's say, the same requirements. So if you want to produce halal as a producer, as a company, you want to be able, you want to do the same for covering all the Muslim countries. You don't want to change because it's not cost effective. You don't want to change your production system or your way of producing, elaborating your products based on the target country, based on the market. But unfortunately, today, because of the lack of harmonization, we have that. We have different standards, different rules, different requirements, and sometimes they are not coming with the same, let's say, approach. They are not saying the same. But it's also true that in the 99 or 95, depends, 97, let's say 95% of the cases, they are almost saying the same. But for some specific categories or items or products or things, they are, as I said, saying sometimes different things. But what happened with the standards? We saw different types of organization: standardization, accreditation, and certification, agencies or entities. Now, what happened with the standards? Okay, basically, we have 3 levels. Okay, when we look at the halal standards, we can see, let's say, 3 geographical levels, if you allow me to say that. Okay, first of all, let's start for global, then let's go through regional, and finally through national. Okay, so from the global point of view, we have standards. So what happened? For the 57 Muslim majority countries, in principle, we have standards. So I was saying, okay, the lack of harmonization, but it's not, let's say, 100% true, because as I said, from the global perspective of for all the Muslim majority countries, we have some standards. The problem is some Muslim majority countries, they are not applying, let's say, they are not making these standards applicable. Okay. So what happened from the, let's say, global point of view? We have, as I said, OIC. OIC, Organization for the Islamic Cooperation, okay? Multilateral body or organization representing the 57 Muslim majority countries. Okay. OIC has a standardization body, a SMIC. This is the logo. This is the logo of a SMIC, okay? A SMIC has the headquarters in Turkey, okay? And SMIC, as I said, is the Halal standardization body for OIC. And SMIC, as you can see here, came with standards. Okay, here we have the standards. OIC, SMIC standards. Okay, SMIC came with the standards for regulating halal in the 57 Muslim majority countries. They did that, and we have those standards. But what happened with the SMIC standards? They are only applicable in those Muslim majority countries where basically you don't have a national or regional approach. Okay, so the SMIC is the applicable standard in, for example, African Muslim majority countries, in the Central Asia Muslim majority countries. So SMIC rules are the applicable ones in Algeria, Kazakhstan, okay? Let's say not the most important Muslim majority countries, okay? So SMIC is the rule or the rules of SMIC. They are there for, let's say, the second best for those Muslim majority countries where, okay, you can find business opportunities for sure, but they are not the more attractive ones, okay? So we have, and maybe tomorrow, but let's hope for the best, all the Muslim majority countries can decide to, okay, let's kill our national and regional standards and regulations, and let's only accept SMIC. If they do that, tomorrow we will have a global halal standard, because that was the idea behind SMIC, let's say, approach. When they came with the halal standards, they were thinking about, okay, we will be providing standards, or we will be providing the 57 Muslim majority countries with the same standards to avoid the problems. And they did that. They came with the standards, but the key Muslim majority countries, they decide to came with their own halal standards. So they are accepting SMIC, and we will see that later on. They are accepting SMIC because all the Muslim majority countries are part of OIC, so they have to accept the standards coming from SMIC. But the applicable halal standards in some key Muslim majority countries are the national or regional ones and not the SMIC ones. They are accepting, but saying no, the halal standard applicable here is not the one coming from SMIC. It's the one coming from my halal standardization body. And here I have my own framework, my own structure, everything. The SMIC is there. We are accepting as a reference. Okay? As a second best, but it's not the applicable one. Okay? So from the global perspective of all the 57 Muslim majority countries, even when I said we have a lack of harmonization, and it's true, we have something working on the right direction. We have the SMIC rules, the SMIC standards, trying to provide all the Muslim majority countries with the same requirements for halal. This will be the best scenario because we will be avoiding many issues, problems, misunderstandings. But unfortunately today, even when the standards are there, and these standards are applicable in some Muslim majority countries, they are not the applicable ones everywhere in the 57 Muslim countries. Okay, so that's the approach from the global level or perspective. Then going down, we have, let's say, the regional level or the regional approach. What happened? Some countries, they decide, some Muslim majority countries, of course, they decide to come with rules for regulating halal for their home countries or markets. So from the regional point of view, we have a region, we don't have more, and that's also good. We have a region where all the Muslim countries, in principle, and you will see why I'm saying in principle have the same rules, the same standards and requirements for halal. I'm talking about the GCC. GCC is, let's say, a set of 6 Arab nations. I'm talking about Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Oman. Okay, for the GCC countries, we have, in principle, the same standards. Okay? Here, the GCC, we have, from the regional point of view, one standardization body. We have GCO. Here we have the logo. GCO is the GCC Standardization Organization. Same role like a SMIC, is a pure standardization body, but not for the 57 Muslim majority countries, in this case for the 6 GCC members. Okay? So they came with standards. And okay, we don't have a global halal standard, but at least for one region, no, we can think we have same rules. We have, as you can see here, basically 2 standards for food. We have the 993, I already mentioned, for meat and poultry, and the 255 for processed food. Okay, that's great. We have 6 countries at least with the same approach, with the same requirements, with the same rules, with the same standards. But that's not true also. Why? Because inside, and now we will be starting to talk about the national level or approach or perspective, inside the GCC, 2 countries out of 6, they decide to come with its own or national halal, let's say, framework. So imagine, we didn't have, or we don't have, even when SMIC standards are there, we don't, or we didn't have a global halal standard. But we were happy because at least for one region, this is important countries, relevant ones, we had, I said we had because the national, let's say, regulations for Saudi and UAE are not let's say, very old or far. So we had, at least for 6 Arab nations or 6 Muslim majority countries, we had the same standards. But 2 of them, a few years ago, they saw the opportunity of, let's say, become a key player or become the main reference in the halal space. So for that, they decide to gain with their own halal standards. I already mentioned the countries. UAE, I'm based here. Saudi Arabia, they came or they are coming, in the case of Saudi Arabia, with a national halal legal framework, basically with its own rules or requirements. So, and now using this case, I will be talking about the national level or perspective. We have some Muslim majority countries, by the way, the most important ones, or the key ones, some of the key ones, with national halal standards. So basically, they are accepting SMIC because all the Muslim majority countries, they are part of OIC. In the case of GCC, for example, UAE and Saudi Arabia, they are also accepting not only SMIC, also accepting the GCO standard, because UAE and Saudi Arabia, they are also part of GCC. But then we have, as I said, a national level where we have, of course, UAE and Saudi Arabia, but more Muslim majority countries. So here we have Indonesia, we have Malaysia, we have Singapore, we have, as I said, UAE. So we have some Muslim majority countries. I'm talking about the key ones where the applicable halal standard or standards, if they have some, they are the national ones. So you can imagine the complexity of this legal framework, where we don't have a global halal standard, but still we have SMIC standard trying to, let's say, play that role, but in a non-successful way, because SMIC is only applicable in some Muslim majority countries. The most important ones with the SMIC rules are Turkey, Pakistan, you know, but then you have Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, I don't know, Algeria, you know, you have the second level. But we have that in place. Then we have one region where we had also standards for a group of or set of Muslim majority countries, no, the GCC ones. But then we have also inside the GCC, as well as in all the regions, some countries with their, let's say, own halal standard with national rules. So you can imagine, as I said, the complexity or the fragmentation from the regulation point of view. This is something crazy, making this amazing market sometimes so complex, difficult for producers. For the reason we are here, the Halal Trade and Marketing Center is helping companies, producers to navigate this complexity, not only to connect with the, let's say, potential buyers, also to help the producer with the, let's say, regulation needs or requirements. So from the standardization point of view, we have this, let's say, framework where we don't have global halal standard, but we have a SMIC train to play that role. But their standards are not applicable in all the Muslim majority countries, only in some of them, and they are not the, let's say, the key ones where everyone can sell their products. Then we have, from the regional point of view, one region with their own rules, but inside that region, we have two countries coming with national approaches or frameworks, and then out of GCC, we also have other Muslim majority countries with national requirements or standards. I mentioned Indonesia or Malaysia or Singapore, these three in the Southeast Asia. So, and by the way, you can find news of other Muslim majority countries trying, we want to have also our national standard. So instead of going through the harmonization or accepting SMIC everywhere, they are going in the wrong direction, saying, no, we want to have something. We have our own interpretation about halal, or we want to be a key player in this market. So we will be also elaborating our own regulation and making the companies go through that new regulation if they want to their products here. So this is the situation, this is the scenario, and it's not true. Here, every single day, we have to check the standards, the requirements, the news, to keep ourselves updated, and then, thanks to that, be able to let's say, provide the right information, provide companies with the right information. No? So this is the let's say, the approach from the standardization point of view. Here you have the key standards, okay? For example, Malaysia has more. There is one for logistics, so they have more standards, but here you have the key ones, by the way, for F&B products. Basically, as I said, all the Muslim majority countries, or depending on the, let's say, geographical level, you have the same, let's say, the same framework for F&B. SMIC or GCC or UAE, for example, thinking about one country, or Malaysia or Indonesia, they have, let's say, always one standard for meat and poultry, slaughterhouses, okay, where you have the ritual for slaughtering the animal, the illicit ones, and blah, blah, blah. And then you have always another standard or rule for processed food. Those where they want to have a traceability system to avoid cross-contaminations and guarantee that the final products are halal, okay? So there are more standards. There are also standards for cosmetics, as I said, or for pharma, logistics. So, but obviously here we are here for talking about food or F&B products, food and beverage. So here you have the names of the main standards, and here we have the SMIC, the global, let's say, approach. We have the only regional case, the GCC, and then two national, let's say, approaches or frameworks for, in this case, from the Southeast Asia. Why from the Southeast Asia? Because now I will use the UAE as a, let's say, case or template to trying to explain more and trying to make you understand the complexity of this, let's say, regulation. So here,
sorry,
yes.
Sorry, Tomas. Before to go ahead, I have a question from a participant. Let's make a step backward. You just mentioned the traceability system to get to the end product. The question is, in agriculture, we use, I mean, in Italy, it's common to use the, for instance, the pork excrements to fertilize the fields.
Yes.
So as soon as you are a producer of some agricultural products such as vegetables or whatever, or fruit or whatever that you want to sell to a halal market, do you have to take care also of that part of the production system, or it's not taken into consideration? Because I know it's a tricky question, but I mean, if you have to certify, if we have to certify all the steps, this is one of the most important steps in agriculture. So,
of course, you have to take care of that. But talking about fertilizers as well as feeding for animals, they still don't have, or we still don't have, let's say, requirements. We have the standards. They are starting to think about that, about fertilizers, about animal feeding, because sometimes also animals, getting, let's say, non-halal feeding products. So it's halal if, I don't know, a lamb or no, or it's, the sheep is eating, I don't know, for example, some products where the pork fat is there. It's that product, the meat coming from that sheep will be halal when that sheep was eating that. The same idea with the fertilizers. You are right. What happened if that way of using the fertilizers is creating a cross-contamination? Of course, you will have to change. But as you said, we are talking about end products. So we will be checking the ingredients and the final result. And we will be going through the lab to check, the PCR, if pork is there or not, if ethanol is there or not, to check. And maybe it's not there, or if you have, a cleaning process or this or that, I'm thinking, the pork fertilizer is not, let's say, creating maybe or generating a cross contamination for the end product. Talking about the end product or for the raw material coming from this field with the pork fertilizer. So you don't have to, but in the future, maybe you have to take care of that, or you have to think twice about that, or you have to change the type of fertilizer. But today, according to the existing Halal standards, for fertilizers or animal feeding, the debate, of course, is there. And maybe some countries will come with updates for changing the approach and making also that, let's say, mandatory or under control. So, but today, no one is going to check if the field is this or that fertilizer. By the way, the same with the medicines for the animals, the same with the chemical products for the fields. So the debate is there, again, also matching with the health, concern or big discussion. But till today, no one is going to check that. They are going to check the factory. They are going to check the place where you are, processing, where you are transforming, where you are manipulating, where you are, producing, elaborating the end products. No, you were right when you said that. It's about the end product. The end product is halal or not, based on the ingredients. Because sometimes, for example, in Italy or also in Spain, I saw that. It's a funny, even stupid situation, but I saw cases, cross-contamination cases, where the problem was one of the employees eating a ham, let's say, sandwich, and then, with the hands working. So, cross-contamination for the final product. Even when everything was, halal, all the ingredients. They were segregating sometimes also the business line because maybe they have also, let's say, other business lines or production lines for pork or non-halal products. So everything was under control, but one of the employees, eating, not cleaning the hands, and then touching and checking that, let's say, product, and boom, cross-contamination. Company saying, oh, it's possible. So that's the point. It's about the end product. Imagine, no? Everything is halal, everything is segregated, everything is under control, audited, but you can have an error, for example, also, okay, I got this raw material or ingredient and I put here, and then, we have the problem. So it's about the end product, and no one, auditors from the halal certification bodies, they are not going till today so deep to check fertilizers, animal feeding, the medicines for the animals, also the chemical products for, killing the bugs in the fields or this or that. No. That is a good point because the debate is there. Obviously, the legal framework is, as you saw, very complex, but maybe it will become more complex because all these things will be in the future maybe in place. So you have from farm to fork, you have to check everything. So going also to the farm or to the field to check, okay, show me the fertilizer, show me the animal feeding, show me the medicines or the hormones. Are you using hormones for, the animals or this or that? The debate is there, but they are not, still, they are not, making the certifiers, let's say, or forcing the certifier, better to say, to go to check also that for those points.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
No more questions, Cristian?
No.
Okay,
you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. So now we will go through the UAE Halal legal framework in order to understand the things that we saw. If you remember, we have 3 types of bodies or entities or organizations regulating this market. And then we have, we saw also different rules, different standards. So I'm using UAE because honestly, even when I'm working and living here, I think it's the most complex framework ever. So let's try to explain this framework to all of you. Okay, the UAE case, what happened? We have, as you can see here, many logos. Okay, and we have like 4 lines. The first one, here we have the logos for standardization bodies. Second line, we have logos for accreditation bodies. Third line, we have logos for certifiers. And finally, we have another line for the national halal brand for the UAE halal mark or brand. Okay, let's start. First line, what happened? Okay, as I said, UAE has its own halal legal framework. So that means that we have our own standardization body and our own accreditation body and our rules, our standards, our requirements. So going through the first line, here in the UAE, we have one halal standardization body, now under the umbrella of the Ministry of Industry here in the UAE. It's called ESMA. ESMA is the halal standardization body for the UAE. ESMA came with 2 standards for F&B products, 993, UAE 993 for meat and poultry, sorry, and UAE 255 for processed food. Okay, perfect. We have local or national standards with our own requirements. But what happened from the standardization point of view? Something very strange. Okay, UAE came with national standards. For food, they mentioned once, 993, 255. But what happened? UAE is part, first of all, of GCC. So we have to accept the standards, the halal ones coming from the GCO. So GCO 993 and GCO 255, they are also accepted in the UAE. And then UAE is also part of SMIC. Sorry, it's also part of OIC. So UAE has also to accept the standards coming from SMIC, because SMIC is the standardization body of the OIC. So in principle, ESMA, GCO, and SMIC standards, halal ones, are all applicable. And the funny thing, they are not saying the same for some specific products or ways of production, producing. So, which are the applicable ones? Okay, the applicable ones, as you can imagine, the ESMA or MOIAD, the Ministry of Industry of the UAE wants the UAE 993, the UAE 255. What happened with GCO standards and SMIC standards? We are accepting those standards and they are applicable as a second best. Okay? So we have this for the standardization. Then what happened with accreditation? If we go through the second line, we have also logos. Okay, here in the UAE, and I think we are the only country, the only Muslim majority country in the world with 2 accreditation bodies. We have, instead of one normal thing everywhere, we have 2. We have one in Dubai and another one in Abu Dhabi. Here in Dubai, we have the Emirates International Accreditation Center. And in Abu Dhabi, we have the Emirates National Accreditation System. Both are federal entities. Both have the same role. They are, as I said at the beginning, they are the ones auditing the certifiers here inside the UAE as well as abroad to check if those certifiers are ready or not, they are able or not from the technical and religious point of view to audit and certify producers according to the ESMA standards, to the UAE Halal standards. So we have 2 accreditation bodies providing companies with the same companies, meaning certifiers, providing certifiers with the same service. Okay, so this is from the local perspective or national point of view. But as I said before, for the standardization, UAE is also part of GCC. So what happened? GCC has GCO for standardization, but also its own halal accreditation body, the GCC Accreditation Center. And here we have the logo of GAC. So GAC is also providing, let's say, the accreditation, providing certifiers, halal certification bodies with accreditation. Okay, for the 6 GCC countries. Okay, so we have 3 bodies, 2 from the, let's say, local perspective, and another one, GAC, from the regional level. These 3 organizations, they are doing the same. They are providing certification bodies with the halal accreditation. They are auditing the certifiers. They are checking if they are able or not to audit and certify producers according to the halal standards, the ones applicable in the UAE in this case. So We have that from the accreditation point of view. Then we can go through the third line. And here we will see different logos. Here we have the certification bodies. And you have the logos of the certifiers in Italy, recognized by the already mentioned Halal accreditation bodies. So here, as you can see, we have the logos for certifiers. All of them from Italy, all of them recognized by EIAC or ENAS or GAC. Okay, so these are the only ones in Italy ready to provide producers with certifications recognized, valid to export to the UAE. Okay. And finally, as I said, we have the UAE Halal logo or the UAE Halal brand. Okay. So for the producers looking for exporting the products to the UAE through the certification coming from one of these four certifiers, they can also use, they have to pay, of course, but they can also use the Halal brand for marketing or for promoting, okay, their products here. But now the question is, if I'm a producer, if I'm an Italian company in Piemonte, and I want to export my products to the UAE, what I have to do? And going further or going deeper, if I want to export to the UAE, but also to the entire Muslim world, what happened? How can I be safe? Okay, this is the key question for the companies, for the producers, because obviously it's good to have this in mind, but at the end of the day, if you are a company, you want to sell, you want to export, you want to buy your products in the UAE as well as in other Muslim majority countries, and you want to have in place in your company a global solution. Means you want a certification recognized by all the Muslim majority countries. A certification valid to export to the 57 OIC markets. So for that, you have to do only one thing. You have to find a certifier in Italy or around with all the accreditation or recognitions coming from the Halal, from the existing Halal accreditation bodies. So if I'm a company, a F&B company, a producer in Piemonte, and I want to export to the Muslim world, I want to, let's say, check this opportunity, I will do one thing. I will check the accreditations of the existing certifiers in Italy or in other countries, neighboring, neighbor countries, to see which one is the one with all the accreditations or almost all coming from the Muslim majority. Because if we want, for example, only to export to the UAE, it's easy. Here you have the logos of the 4 certifiers operating in Italy and with the accreditations from EIAC, ENAS, or GAC. So basically, they are recognized and they are ready and authorized to issue certifications for producers in Italy looking for exporting their products to the UAE. Okay, but maybe that's only the beginning, UAE. But tomorrow you have an opportunity in Malaysia or in Saudi or in Egypt or in Turkey or in Kazakhstan or in, So imagine if you got the certification from a certifier without the remaining recognitions or accreditations. Same problem. You are not ready or able to export. So, as I said, as a company, you have to try to get the Halal certification from a certifier in Italy or out of Italy with all or almost all the accreditations coming from the Muslim majority countries. And basically, those accreditations are the following ones. Okay? We already saw the accreditation for the UAE, AYAC or ENAS. We already saw the accreditation for the, let's say, remaining GCC countries, GAC. In Saudi, they are accepting GAC, but they are forcing the certifiers also to go through the SFDA Halal Center for, let's say, registering for a registration. So there is no other thing to do. It's not only about getting the accreditation from GAC. It's also about the registration process with the SFDA, but for the certifiers, it's not a big issue. So for the GCC, we have GAC, but in the UAE, we have AYAC and ENAS, okay? Then, if we go, for example, if we travel to the Southeast Asia, there you have also accreditation bodies. So in Malaysia, the certifier must be recognized or accredited by JAKIM. In Indonesia, the same, but by BPGPH, and in Singapore by MUIS, okay? In Turkey by HAC, in Morocco by Imanor. So there are, you know, as I said, some countries with accreditation bodies, and the certifier, not the producers. The certifiers must be the ones going through their accreditation systems to get those recognitions, accreditations, to be ready to certified producers. So for that reason, I said, from the company perspective or point of view, the key point is finding a certifier in Italy or out of Italy with all or almost all those accreditations or recognitions, because you don't have to take care about the accreditations of the certifiers. They have to, the certifiers, they are the ones who has to go through the accreditation system, paying the fees, passing the audits, and blah, blah, blah. And then, as a certifier, saying to you, okay, I can provide you the Halal certification, and we have this accreditation, so this recognition. So our certification is valid to export to all these countries or to the entire Muslim space, to export to all the Muslim majority countries. So that's the, let's say, right way of thinking as a producer, as a company.
Sorry, Tomas.
Yes.
I have a couple of questions for you.
Sure, please.
Talking about the certifiers, I mean, are they like or religious body? I mean, when we think about the kosher certification, usually it's the rabbi that is in charge
Yes.
of release the certification. Is it the same for the Halal certification?
No.
Okay.
It's not the same. Basically, kosher and halal, they have things in common. They are technical religious certification, but they have some, as I said, requirements also in common, but they are the way of getting the halal certification is not the same. The way of producing halal is not the same. For example, you mentioned the rubbing. You don't have to, in the kosher, for me kosher, from my point of view, and based on my experience, it's even more difficult, because for the producer, imagine you have to, when you want to produce kosher, first of all, you have different types of kosher, Passover, this, that, based on the festivity or based on the community. So you have also different types of, let's say, kosher. But not only that, you have to bring the rabbin every single time. So he has to be there producing, checking. In the halal case, you have the auditors of the certification body auditing one per year, and then they are designing, let's say, people inside your company, some of your employees, to, let's say, check the halal production system. And they are the one reporting to the certifier, but you don't have every single day the auditors or the man or tulema for producing. You are, let's say, reporting to the certifier. You are, so, and they are passing by at least one time per year, or if they are thinking something is wrong, maybe they can have a blind audit, or, hey, show me because we got this, or we are aware of this way of working and it's not according to the rules, so we want to check, you know, but it's different. So, but yeah. Another point, and thank you for the question, you can produce halal and kosher at the same time, not for meat, because you have different ways of killing the animals. And by the way, for, I don't know, in the kosher certification, there is a part of the animal that is not kosher. So you have basically the half, but the other half is not kosher. So you can't market that part as a kosher, but you can't also use that part as a halal, because the way of killing was different. So, but for example, processed food or for other items or categories, you can have both certifications, because people sometimes thinking, or businessmen, companies, you know, because they are also mixing things. They are thinking the political issue between Israel and the Arab world is also there, and it's not good to have the kosher and the halal logo on the same label. No problem. It's not the same, it's not related to that. So you can produce, in some cases, halal and kosher. I think it's also interesting to mention.
So, and basically the imam doesn't step in any production
no,
process,
they will,
even in the slaughterhouse?
Yes, of course, same. They will be not thinking or talking about the companies, the producers, the employees there. They will be not watching any imam. Why? Because the certifiers, they are sending auditors, Muslim auditors, but they are not, let's say, religious experts.
Okay.
Okay. And they are the ones auditing, checking, and based on the audit report, they are giving or not the certification. But once you get, as a producer, the certification, you have to renew the certification. So they will come again, maybe at the end of the year, but you don't have inside the company for producing halal, let's say, religious experts or the same auditors coming from the certifier. You are using your own staff, the same staff, but they are reporting to the certifier. Okay, and sometimes they can pass by to check, or they can have this blind audit, or they can, you know, they have ways of controlling to avoid, you know, misunderstanding or people. But talking about slaughterhouses, because that there is a key point. Basically, for processed food, the standards are not forcing companies to hire Muslim employees. You don't have to use Muslim people for producing halal. But in the slaughterhouses, some countries, not all, but some countries, they are forcing companies to use Muslim slaughterments. They have to be Muslims. But for example, GCC, according to the GCO 993, they are talking about men from the book. Men from the book means, Christian, Muslim or Jewish. So basically, everyone can do the halal ritual, but other countries, Malaysia, Indonesia, saying no.
Okay.
For processed food, no need to use Muslim employees, but in the meat space, the slaughterman must be Muslim.
Okay. And another question concerning the more the check of this certification. Do the check the check of the halal products is done when the product arrives in the country or in advance? And in that case, who is in charge of doing all these checks? And in case of controversy, there is a body that is in charge of solving any kind of dispute that may arise from some documents that are not that clear, or the custom guy who is having doubts about the products that are entering the country, who is in charge to do the check, and if is the case, to do the to solve any kind of dispute that may arise.
Well, Christian, it depends, because again, depends on the country. You have some countries, for example, Qatar is one of them, where you have to legalize the halal certification at the embassy or consulate.
Okay.
So they are checking in advance, because here in Qatar, at the border, the official will be, let's say, expecting a halal certification coming from a certifier recognized by the halal authorities in Qatar with the Qatar embassy or consulate stamp. So for that, in advance, the Qatar embassy or consulate is filtering, it's checking. You have the same, for example, in Algeria. For some countries, you have that system. For other countries, no. You send the documentation, you send the documents, not only the halal certification, also the remaining ones for a basic export, and they are receiving here. So the officials here at the border, they are the ones checking the certification. I prefer the Qatar thing. Qatar model, let's say, has good and bad things. Bad things you have to pay for the stamp, and you have to go through the embassy or consulate process. So take time and money. But you are safe. If they are saying no, you are not sending the container. If something, as you said, changed or is not there, wait. They will be not putting the stamp. They are, checking in advance, filtering. What happened with the non-Qatar model? For example, UAE. Okay, you send the container with the information. Once we receive here, or the official receives the information, sometimes the container is on the way or close to reach or already here. If something is wrong, you have a problem. So for that reason, I was, putting emphasis on that idea of you have to check the accreditation. You have to be safe. You have to find a certifier with all the accreditation or almost all the accreditations. Because, by the way, I was saying also that because sometimes you are exporting to the UAE, but then we are re-exporting. So if your certification is valid for the UAE, but not valid for Qatar or for Saudi Arabia you have another problem. So here the issue is when the officials at the border check, they have a list. I have been there with officials. So they have a list. It's very easy. They have a list. Okay, this certification is coming from this certifier. Okay, let's see if we have or not this certification body among the recognized one from our authorities here in the UAE or in the GCC with the GAC accreditation. Yes, no problem. No, you have two options. You have to get back. You have to move back the products, the container, or they are destroying the goods here. I saw that, and it's so sad. And people losing a lot of money because of stupid things, honestly, because it's about checking. It's about, double check. The problem is here, you find the issue when the goods are on the way or almost here or here. With the Qatar model or Algeria or other country, you have the embassy, let's say, control. So yeah, that's those are, let's say, the different way, but we don't have you were talking about something interesting like a body or institution for, let's say, going with this problem. No, we don't have. By the way, based on, again, on my experience, when the products are here or in other Muslim majority countries at the border, those products are already here, so you can't get the certification for those products because sometimes, hey, the certifier will come tomorrow, we will have a express audit, I will get the scope or this, trying to fix the problem. They will say, congratulations, but for the future containers, not for these ones because they were not produced according to our rules or something was not, correct. So we can't do anything. And sometimes I'm receiving calls or emails of companies saying, hey, we have 10 containers, 5 containers in Sharjah or in Jebel Ali or here or there, and we have this problem. You can convince them, or we can try to do this with the certification body here at home to make them think that no, because the production is previous. So, sometimes, for example, companies sending, imagine something happened, but still companies sending products without the Halal certification.
Yes.
Because they are not aware or because they don't want to pay, I don't know, sending. Then the officials here stopping the containers. And they were saying, no, tomorrow we will have the audit and we will get the certification. Yeah, but you produce this without the certification in place, without the controls, without the system, without the audit, without anything. That doesn't make your products in the container halal. So you have different, let's say, as you saw, we have different ways of controlling, let's say, but we don't have a body for this specific, matter or with that role.
Okay, and I have the last question. So we talked about the certification of the producers. As we saw in the previous webinar last week, there are another couple of cases that we can talk about. I don't know if today or maybe in the next module, but the question is mainly for retailers or people working in restaurants, where in some way could be some cross-contaminations. Of course, in restaurants is easier than in a retail shop, for instance, because in the retail shop you can have all the products packed and then you can decide to dedicate some corners to halal products and other to non-halal products. But in restaurants, the cross-contamination is easier because you are,
of course,
producing food, and then maybe you can have in the same place some pork meat or not pork meat. In that case, is there a kind of certification also for those players or not? The halal certification is just for the end and packed products?
No. There are also standards for regulating halal or Muslim-friendly tourism services. So basically for hotels and restaurants, where you have, again, to set up or establish a traceability system to avoid cross-contaminations, to make that to make the, let's say, the clients feel that you have halal ingredients or raw materials for elaborating the menus. So it's about, again, traceability system to avoid cross-contaminations, about having raw material, halal raw material or halal ingredients, and also about a protocol of working, of course. to avoid misunderstanding, to all these things.
Okay. So I think we are about to close the first
Yes.
module. Is it right? Okay. Just an information for the participant. I switch to Italian. Abbiamo quindi chiuso la prima sessione di approfondimento sul tema della certificazione Halal. Il mio collega Davide Fenoglio, che appunto del laboratorio chimico che ci sta supportando sugli aspetti tecnici anche della realizzazione di questo ciclo di webinar, ha pubblicato nella sezione della chat e anche nella sezione domande e risposte sotto il tag pubblicati un link che punta sostanzialmente a un form dove potrete inserire il vostro nome e cognome e l'inizio e la fine della connessione nel caso in cui vogliate ricevere poi al termine di questi 3 moduli formativi e informativi un certificato di partecipazione, un attestato di partecipazione. Quindi per coloro che sono interessati appunto ad ottenere questo attestato, vi invitiamo a compilare questo modulo in maniera da tracciare appunto la vostra partecipazione e potervi poi al termine delle 3 giornate rilasciare il documento in formato elettronico. Eventualmente lo trasmetteremo anche via email, così in un modo o nell'altro riuscirete a recuperare questo link, insieme poi alla presentazione che è stata fatta oggi e alle presentazioni che seguiranno nelle prossime giornate. Tomas, if you have something else to add or not?
Everything is clear. I think we had a productive session. Looking forward to meet you all again next week on Wednesday, where we will be having, let me check the index. Yeah, the module 2. And we will talk about the Halal certification itself and how to implement the Halal certification in the F&B products, in the F&B companies, and so on.
Okay. So thank you so much for your kind participation and for sharing all your experience and then the information you provided us with. And see you next Wednesday on the 14th of June. And thanks again. Grazie a tutti per la partecipazione. Abbiamo finito fortunatamente in tempo, quindi siamo rimasti esattamente nello slot che ci eravamo prefissati. Ci rivediamo quindi mercoledì prossimo, sempre alla stessa ora, alle 9:30, comincerà il secondo modulo e vi chiederemo magari di provare a collegarvi qualche minuto prima, giusto per evitare problemi di carattere tecnico. Di nuovo staremo insieme per 2 ore e mezza, 3, dalle 9:30 a mezzogiorno e mezza, grosso modo. Chiaramente tutte le domande che vi possono venire in mente nel corso della settimana, avendo di nuovo Tomas come relatore, avremo la possibilità di porle anche in occasione della prossima puntata. Grazie a tutti, grazie a Davide per averci supportato e alla prossima settimana.
Grazie a voi, buongiorno a tutti.
Grazie.
See you, Tomas. Bye bye.
See you.
Have a nice day.